Hello, and welcome to Segment 2 of Understanding TVAAS. I'm Nancy Zambito. I'm currently the Director of Team Training and District Support in the Tennessee Department of Education. I come to that position from many years in education as a classroom teacher, a school administrator, and most recently as the Director of Schools in the Jackson-Madison County Schools in Tennessee. In the first segment of this session, you learned more about value added generally and about TVAAS, the model used in Tennessee specifically. This segment will address TVAAS specifically as it applies to the Tennessee Educator Acceleration Model, TEAM. This year, for the first time, TVAAS will be used as 35% of each educator's evaluation. This is a different use of TVAAS, and the calculations for the composite scores use information that was provided in the past, like mean NCE gain or effect scores and standard error, and combine multiple subjects or years into a single score. Previously, teacher, school, and district effect was reported by subject and grade. These will be combined into a single 1 through 5 level score. What data is included in composites? Current year data for currently taught subjects. Previous data up to 2 years for currently taught subjects across grade levels. Subjects not taught in the current year are not included in the composite calculation. Take a look at this example. In 2009-10, Mrs. Hamilton would have received a teacher effect score for 7th grade math, 8th grade math, and 8th grade science individually. This year, Mrs. Hamilton's composite score will be calculated including the current and past 2 years of data in both 7th grade and 8th grade math, because she's teaching these subjects this year. Her 6th grade math score would also be included because it is the same subject as the one she is currently teaching. U.S. history will also be included in the composite calculation because she teaches it in the current year. TCAP and EOC estimates will be calculated separately and then combined. Each of the value-added measures highlighted in the table will count equally in calculating the evaluation composite. Therefore, to find the average composite index, the TCAP composite will be multiplied by 7/8 and added to 1/8 of the EOC composite to find the average index. Mrs. Hamilton's TVAAS data from 8th grade science in the 2009-10 school year will not be included as part of her composite score since she's not teaching that subject in the current year. For the 35% growth measure component of teacher evaluation, teachers with individual teacher effect scores will use their own composite. Teachers in non-tested grades and subjects will be assigned a specific school or district-wide composite at the local level, district or school, based on available options for each group. The chosen composite should align as closely as possible to the educator's primary responsibility. Before we take a look at specific examples, let's talk about the 4 key components of composites. First, we have the NCE, Normal Curve Equivalent Gain, TCAP, or Teacher School District Effect for end-of-course assessments. The second component is standard error. This provides a measure of uncertainty around the progress estimates. The size of the standard error is affected by the number of students and the amount of data for each student used in generating the progress estimate, as well as the variability of the student data. Both the standard error and NCE gain or effect are the same as was reported in previous years. Third is the index score, which equals average NCE gain or effect score across currently taught subjects and grades over 3 years, divided by the average standard error. If 3 years of data are not available, 1 or 2 years of data will be used. EOC standard errors are calculated as a simple average standard error. Each error is squared Then take the square root of the sum and divide by the number of errors included. TCAP standard errors are not a simple average. Because the same students may appear more than once in a teacher's data, there is assumed to be a relationship between the measures. For example, a self-contained elementary school teacher would have TVAAS in reading, language arts, math, science, and social studies. The scores would be based on mostly the same students, and this would affect how the average standard error should be calculated. The more data, the more stable and statistically reliable the value-added measures. Therefore, index scores include as much data as possible, up to 3 years in the same subjects currently taught. This chart shows how the index score is converted to a composite level. Mr. Bilal teaches English 1 at Royal Purple High School in a large urban school district. Here is his teacher value-added report. We're going to focus on the teacher progress estimates and standard errors box at the top of the page. On the left, we have one line for each of the past 3 years and the 3-year average. The columns show the estimates, standard error, index, and level by year. Using the 2009 data, you can find the index for that year. The formula for the index is the estimate divided by the standard error. For the 3-year average, 3.0 divided by 1.7 equals an index of 1.80. This index score is then converted to a level based on the scale. An index score of 1.80 is equivalent to a level 4. A 0 on this scale represents expected growth, which means that students experienced the average schooling experience in Tennessee and met the average growth. A level 4 or 5 represents a teacher, school, or district whose students have exceeded expected growth, and a level 1 or 2 represents a teacher, school, or district whose students have below expected growth. The same process applies to both school and district level calculations. The indices are calculated by finding the average effect, or NCE gain, and then dividing by the standard error. The new index is then converted to a level based on the same table as the teacher effect. I hope this session has answered many of your questions about TVAAS. Additional information will be available in a frequently asked questions format for areas you would like to learn more about.